Hello and welcome. If you're a parent with a child in private school, you are probably feeling more than a little anxious right now. And, for good reason. The UK's new tax on school fees isn't some far-off worry anymore. It's here, it's a reality, and frankly, it's causing a huge amount of confusion. But don't worry, in this special discussion arranged by the fantastic team at My Tax Accountant, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We'll break down exactly what you need to know so you can make the best possible decisions for your family's future.
We've been inundated with requests. Just take a moment to let that sink in. That's a quote from the director of a top international school over in Germany. And believe me, it's not just Germany. Schools all across Europe are seeing a flood of applications from British families. So why is this happening? It's because this new tax, it's not just another line item on an invoice. It is a fundamental shakeup that's forcing parents to look for alternatives, some for the very first time. It really tells you just how big a deal this change is.
So what does this all mean for you personally? Well, over the next few minutes, we're going to break it all down. We'll kick off with the tax itself, then dig into why it was introduced, and most importantly, how it's going to affect your finances. We'll also look at the wider ripple effect this is having on the education market, and this is key, we'll give you some genuinely practical tips for navigating the new rules. By the end, you'll have a crystal clear picture of what's happening and what you need to do next.
Okay, let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly is this new tax that everyone's talking about? It's actually quite simple, but the impact is massive. For decades, private school fees in the UK were exempt from value-added tax, or VAT. But that's all changed. As of January 2025, a new 20% tax has been slopped onto most private school fees. Now think about that for a second. If you were paying, say, £20,000 a year for your child's education, you now have to find an extra £4,000 out of nowhere. It's a huge, huge change, and it's forcing a lot of families to have some very difficult conversations around the dinner table.
So, the big question is why? Why the sudden change? Why is this happening now? To understand that, we need to take a quick look back at how this all came about.
It all really started with a political promise. Back in the 2024 general election, the Labour Party made it a key part of their manifesto. They pledged to raise money for state schools by adding VAT to private school fees. When they won, they moved quickly to make good on that promise. The new tax was officially brought in this past January, and despite an immediate legal challenge from the independent school sector, the High Court sided with the government. So, make no mistake, this tax is here, and it's here to stay.
So, let's get to the part you're really here for, right? What does all this actually mean for your wallet? Let's take a closer look at the numbers because they are pretty sobering.
Let's just set a baseline. Imagine you have one child in a private day school. Even before this new tax came in, the average fee was already hovering around £22,000 a year. Now, that's a huge amount of money for most people, but for many, it was a manageable, if difficult, stretch.
But now, with that new 20% VAT, that average fee has jumped by over £4,400 per child. Imagine you're a small business owner in London, maybe a freelancer, and you've got 2 kids in private school. You're now suddenly looking at an extra cost of nearly £9,000 a year. And remember, that's not pre-tax income. That's money you have to find after you've paid all your other taxes. For many families, that is simply unaffordable.
And it's not just about the extra cost for parents. It's also about what this does to the gap between the two sectors. Data from the Institute for Fiscal Studies showed that even before this tax, private schools were spending almost double what state schools could spend per student. This new tax doesn't close that underlying resource gap, but it does dramatically increase the financial burden on the parents who are funding it. So, what's the bigger picture here? How is this new tax affecting the education system as a whole? That's not all. Here's where things get really interesting. One of the most surprising effects has been a major shift in where students are coming from. The number of pupils coming to the UK from nearby European countries like Italy and Spain has dropped pretty significantly. But at the very same time, the number of pupils from the US and China has actually gone up. It seems that for families who are closer, that extra 20% is a deal breaker. But for those coming from further afield, the prestige of a British education is apparently still worth the premium price. As one admissions director at a top Swiss school put it, the tax has made parents think, why not elsewhere? And that's exactly what's happening. Families who might have automatically sent their children to a UK school, maybe the same one they went to themselves, are now seriously looking at these incredible schools in Switzerland, Germany, and other countries, and they're asking themselves a very simple question. Do they offer better value for money? So, What are your options? Is there anything you can actually do to reduce this new financial burden? The answer is yes, absolutely. And stay with me, because this next section is packed with practical tips that could genuinely save you money.
Now here's the good news. Not everything your school charges is taxed at 20%. Your main tuition fees and your boarding fees, yes, they are. But there are some really important exceptions. For example, nursery fees for children under 4 are completely exempt from VAT. And things like school lunches, music lessons, or certain curriculum-related trips might be exempt too. But there's a catch we'll get to. Even school uniforms can be VAT-free if they're for children and sold directly from the school shop. It's a bit of a maze, but there are paths through it.
And here's a pro tip that could save you a surprising amount of money. Listen closely. If your school just sends you a single bundled bill for everything, you'll probably have to pay VAT on the whole lot. But, and this is crucial, if you ask them to itemize the bill, to list things like lunches and music lessons separately, you might be able to get those extra charges VAT-free. It's such a simple request, but it could make a huge difference to your termly bill. It's all about knowing the rules.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. I know it's a ton of information. So what are the key takeaways? What do you absolutely need to remember from all of this?
Here are the most important things to take away. First, the 20% VAT is a reality, and it's not going away, so we have to plan for it. Second, it's going to cost you a lot more money, over £4,000 extra per child on average. And third, and this is the hopeful part, there are ways to reduce the financial burden, but you need to understand the nuances of the rules and be proactive with your school.
Feeling a little overwhelmed by all this? Honestly, that's completely understandable. This is a really complex issue, and it's absolutely natural to have questions about your own specific circumstances and how this is going to affect your family.
And that's exactly where getting some professional help can make all the difference. At My Tax Accountant, the team specializes in helping families just like yours navigate the complexities of the UK tax system, not just with school fees, but with all aspects of your finances.
If you have any questions at all, or if you just want to have a chat about your options and plan for the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can call the team on 0208-570-8531, or you can send an email to info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk. They're friendly, they're approachable, and they are here to help you.
Thanks so much for joining me. We really hope you found this discussion helpful. For more clear, simple guides just like this one, packed with tips and advice on how to manage your finances and save on your taxes, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the My Tax Accountant channel. We'll see you next time.